Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be exploring some pretty fascinating new research on the impact of CBD on canine immune cells and its potential for treating epilepsy in dogs.
Yes, the study published in Animals, a peer-reviewed scientific journal, it really takes a deep dive into the cellular level, looking specifically at canine PBMCs or peripheral blood mononuclear cells, which are key players in the immune system.
Okay, so let's start with the basics here. What exactly did the researchers find out about the safety of CBD for these canine PBMCs?
Well, the first step was just determining a safe dosage, and they actually found that CBD concentrations between 2 and 14 GML were safe for these cells with an IC50 of 15.54 in GML.
Okay, and for our listeners who might not be familiar with all this technical jargon, can you explain what IC50 means?
Sure. IC50 refers to the concentration of a substance that reduces cell activity by half. It's essentially a benchmark for safe and effective dosing. What's interesting here is that this IC50 is actually higher than the typical CBD concentrations found in dogs after normal dosing, which is usually around 0.05, 0.5 bis-UML.
So that raises the question of dosage and whether or not current CBD products for dogs are even delivering enough to be effective.
That's the burning question, and it really highlights the need for, careful consideration when determining appropriate dosages for dogs.
Absolutely. Okay, so now let's move on to the study's findings on inflammation. How did the researchers trigger an inflammatory response to the PBMCs, and what effect did CBD have on it?
So they used LPS, a bacterial toxin, to stimulate the PBMCs and trigger an inflammatory response. Then they measured the levels of 3 pro-inflammatory cytokines: IL-1, IL-6, and TNF-α. These are signaling molecules that play a key role in the inflammatory process.
Got it. And what did they discover about CBD's impact on these cytokines?
The results were pretty interesting. They found that CBD was most effective at reducing IL-6, a key inflammatory marker. It showed a significant reduction at concentrations starting from 7.5 GMLO.
So this suggests that CBD may be particularly effective at targeting IL-6 in dogs.
That's right. And it's worth noting that IL-6 plays a significant role in a variety of inflammatory conditions.
Interesting. What about the other cytokines, IL-1 and TNF-μ?
The effect on those was less pronounced, although there was a general trend towards a decrease with increasing CBD concentrations.
So while CBD seems to have a more targeted effect on IL-6, it may still have some broader anti-inflammatory properties.
Precisely. And this is where the study's findings on epilepsy become especially intriguing.
Okay, let's dive into that now. The researchers looked at 5 dogs with refractory epilepsy, meaning their seizures were difficult to control with conventional medications. What did they do with these dogs?
They treated them with CBD along with their regular anti-seizure medications for 30 days. Blood samples were taken at the beginning and end of the treatment period, and they isolated PBMCs from these samples to measure those same 3 cytokines, IL-1, IL-6, and TNF-μ.
Okay, and what did they observe after the 30 days of CBD treatment?
The results were actually quite striking. They found that TNF-alone levels were significantly reduced in all 5 dogs after the treatment period.
Wow, that's pretty significant considering TNF-N is known to play a role in neuroinflammation, which is thought to contribute to seizures.
Exactly. This finding suggests that CBD could potentially be working by dampening down inflammation in the brain, which could explain the anecdotal reports of its anticonvulsant effects in dogs.
So this research is providing some promising early evidence that CBD could be a valuable tool in treating epilepsy in dogs.
Indeed. It's important to note, though, this was a small study with limitations such as the small sample size and the fact that the dogs were on other medications.
Sure. More research is needed with larger, more controlled studies to confirm these findings and explore the optimal dosage of CBD for treating epilepsy in dogs.
Absolutely. But the study provides a solid foundation for future research and opens up exciting new avenues for understanding CBD's potential in veterinary medicine.
So we've been talking about all these potential benefits, but are there any risks? I mean, are there any concerns about using CBD in dogs long term?
Well, that's a valid concern, and it's definitely an area where more research is needed. This study focused on a 30-day period, but we don't really have a clear picture yet of the long-term effects of CBD in dogs.
And are there any side effects that we know of? Like, have there been any reports of side effects from CBD in dogs?
Well, some of the most commonly reported side effects include drowsiness, dry mouth, and changes in appetite.
Oh.
But those are typically mild, and they usually resolve on their own.
Okay, so it sounds like the safety profile is pretty good, at least in the short term.
Yeah, for sure. But it's always important to talk to your vet before giving your dog any new supplement or medication, including CBD.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
Okay, so let's switch gears a bit and talk about the bigger picture here. We know this study focused specifically on dogs. But what does it tell us about CBD in humans?
Well, that's the crux of the matter.
That-
While we can't just directly take these findings from dogs and apply them to humans, there are enough similarities between the canine and human endocannabinoid systems to suggest that CBD may have similar therapeutic potential for us.
Okay, so the research on dogs is a good place to start then for exploring CBD in human health.
Exactly. It gives us like a framework for understanding how CBD interacts with the immune system and potentially impacts inflammatory conditions.
So this study looks specifically at PBMCs, but could CBD have similar effects on other cell types in the body?
That's certainly a possibility. Further research is needed to explore whether CBD can modulate the activity of other immune cells, such as T cells and B cells, which are really important for fighting off infections.
And what about CBD's potential for treating other conditions besides epilepsy and inflammation? Like, what else could it be used for?
That's a wide open field of research. There's growing interest in exploring CBD's potential for a whole bunch of conditions, including anxiety, pain, and even cancer.
Wow, it seems like we're just scratching the surface of understanding CBD's full potential.
Absolutely. And this research on canine CBD and cytokine modulation is a significant step forward in that journey.
This has been a really fascinating look into the world of CBD and its potential in veterinary and human medicine. Any final thoughts before we move on?
I think the main takeaway here is that while we're still in the early stages of understanding CBD's full potential, this research really does provide compelling evidence of its anti-inflammatory properties and its potential for treating a variety of conditions. We need more research for sure, but the future of CBD research is really promising.
Yeah, it really does seem like there are so many possibilities for future research with CBD. What are some specific areas you think researchers should focus on next?
Well, one thing I think is really worth looking into is the impact of different CBD formulations on how effective it is. CBD can be given in so many ways like oils, tinctures, and edibles, but we don't really know for sure how those different ways of taking it affect how well it's absorbed and how much of it actually gets into the body.
Yeah, that makes sense. So basically, the way CBD is given could really impact how well it works.
Exactly. Another important area for research is personalized medicine. We talked about how important dosage is, but it's very possible that the best dosage of CBD will be different for every dog, or person for that matter, based on things like their genes, their metabolism, and, the underlying condition that's being treated.
So like a one-size-fits-all approach with CBD dosing probably isn't going to be very effective.
Yeah, exactly. We need more research to figure out how to tailor CBD therapy to each individual.
And of course, we can't forget about the ethical stuff surrounding CBD research, especially when it comes to using animals in those studies.
Oh, absolutely. That's a really important point. We need to make sure that any research that involves animals is done ethically and follows the highest standards of animal welfare.
Totally. Okay, and one last thing I wanted to touch on is something that I'm sure is on a lot of our listeners' minds, access to CBD.
Right. Well, the legal stuff around CBD is still kind of up in the air, and it's different everywhere, depending on where you are. It's important for people to know the laws where they live and to only buy CBD products from trustworthy sources.
That's great advice. This has been a truly insightful deep dive into the world of CBD and its potential. I really appreciate you walking us through such a complex and interesting topic.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. And remember, we've covered a lot of ground today, but this is really just the beginning when it comes to CBD. There's still so much more to learn, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for this amazing compound.
From Vet Neurojar, keep those minds inspired, hearts light, and tails wagging.